Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Sharon Bonney. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for COABE. I'm delighted to be here with you today during Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. I'd like to encourage you to go ahead and put your name in the chat box and the organization you're joining us from. We are going to have a wonderful time here today talking about helping our learners get out to vote. This is something that I personally feel very strongly about. So I was very excited when our guests that are joining us said they would do so. So the title, Get Out the Vote, Learn About Easy to Use Civic Engagement Resources, Tips, and Tricks. And today we have with us Jennifer Gagliardi with Links, as well as Chris Myers from Opportunities Industrialization Center of Oklahoma's County. Now, I'm very excited to introduce you to Jennifer Gagliardi. She has been in the field for a long, long time with a great focus on civic engagement. And she is an expert in the field. She has been the guiding force behind our voter page that we have had up for, I believe, about 6 years now. She actually goes through and curates resources for us and has presented numerous times on this topic. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to you, Jennifer, to take it from here. Can you hear me, Jennifer?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Gagliardi. I'm coming to you from Milpitas Adult School, just north of San Jose, and we're in the middle of a fire drill. So anyway, it's talking about the urgency of what we're doing today, talking about voters and talking about adult education. I want to talk about the agenda today. We're going to go over our welcome, purpose, and our introduction, our questions. We're going to share some relevant resources. We're not sharing everything from the list. We want to direct people to go to our voter resource list on coabe.org. I am going to discuss, excuse me. I'm going to discuss one or two things from each one of these topics. First topic we're going to discuss is English language learners, language literacy, and civics literacy. Then we will move on to an informed citizenry, news and media literacy. We're going to talk about volunteer opportunities to career pathways, community organizations and advocacies. And then I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Chris, who is going to be talking about restorative justice. Then we will come back and do further considerations and close out the webinar. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. The purpose today is to identify the latest resources in the forms of PDFs, videos, online courses with the emphasis on the electoral process, voting rights, and voting responsibilities. By adapting and incorporating these resources, participants can implement learning strategies appropriate for ESL, EL Civics, GED, ABE, IE, LCE, IET, or citizenship classrooms, political campaigns, and voting booths. So let's get started. We want to consider these questions. How do we introduce, teach, and discuss American voting and elections content in your classroom of citizens and non-citizen students, because most of our classes are mixed status? We want to talk about how we can create a safe space for adult learners to discuss civics and current events, and how we can encourage students to critically consume media and to make more choices. And most importantly, we want to talk about why vote. So if you have any thoughts, I welcome you to put them into our chat, and hopefully we can open up the discussion and share that out. So those are the questions we would like to consider as we're moving forward. Let's get started. One of the first things is that there's a lot of government websites to go. First place we want to stop at when we're talking about voting or trying to gather resources for our classroom, or perhaps direct some of our students to go there themselves, is we want to go to vote.gov. There they can register to vote. They can get guides to vote, and they have assurances of safety and privacy. So, what's really exciting is that the all the information that's on this website is available in multiple languages, including native languages, native African, native Alaskan language of Yupik, and we have another Native American language. We have Dene. So again, it's all about inclusion. We want people to use their voice and to use their voice in the way they feel the most comfortable to basically express themselves, not only at home, but in the voting booth. So voting.gov is basically your one-stop shop to move through the voting situation, especially to make sure that you're registered to vote. From there, they will usually direct you to your own state or your state's Secretary of State, and underneath that, it should be under the Registrar of Voters, or to their election department. From there, a lot of times the person is directed to the county their county registrar of voters, and of course the states, because they control the laws of registration and registration and voting and the dates and everything like that. They're going to be that's they're probably their most direct route. Another way that they can navigate information is to go to USA.gov. Now, USA.gov is like a portal to all the different aspects of a US government. So if you wanted to get focused information, please go to vote.gov. USA.gov is good if you want to get further information, perhaps on candidates and or what their role is in government. The third thing is that you can go to the EAC.gov, and they will also help you go directly to the state's Secretary of State's. There, it's going to be really interesting. There's going to be a drop down menu of the different states, and you can see that you're expecting to see the similar type of setups in each one of the Secretary of States when they're talking about elections, and that's fairly true across the board. But invariably, there's a little bit of diversity in how the URL is set up. So let's move forward. One of the very interesting things is that when we're talking about the states, as I said before, is that when we're talking about the states, that the states, not the federal government, controls the election and the election laws. So here's an example from the state of California, and I found this really interesting because we have a vote. The Voters' Choice Act in 2016, which I'm very grateful for having it because it provided for greater flexibility and convenience of voters. This really, really helped us during the 2020 election because we were able to create voting centers. So instead of people going to polling places, we were able to create larger voting centers. We were able to put into transition to mail-in ballots. We were able to implement drop boxes. So again, every registered voter got a ballot. We had a huge expansion of early voting, and then we were able to cast their ballot at any voter center within our county. So for instance, people, I did not have to go to the central registrar of voters in our county. I could easily vote simply by dropping off my ballot outside of my school where we had a designated drop box, or I could go to our library and vote in the air-conditioned comfort of our library. And then there was a lot of secure ballot drop boxes, and it was really heartening to see people drive up, drop and basically do their duty early, and they were able to go in and basically go through and encourage others to do it. One of the things that I discovered that when I was doing research for this is you I would think that the California Voter Choice Act would be implemented in all our counties in California. This is not true. The counties themselves elected to join in, and these are counties that are more greatly populated. There might be more diverse language needs. They might have more uh, centers of population that could basically support the secure voting booths. So again, as you can see, the areas in blue in California, they are these were counties that elected to implement the Voter Choice Act. Some of the other counties, say for instance, are more rural counties, elected not to do that. But when you go to those registrar or the county registrars in the counties that did not elect to do that, everybody had drop boxes. Everybody had the expanded voting options. All the only difference I saw was that some of them did not have voting materials in multiple languages. So our state mandates that we have five. Uh, our county has nine mandated languages. Some of these rural areas, it would probably be maybe English and Spanish. So they're not having that great expansion of the language options. But that is their choice, that reflects the will of their people, and so I really appreciate just seeing diversity within my own state. I also was taking a look at other states at this time, and it was really interesting to see that other states had, especially not only different laws, say for instance, different ID laws, but they also had a lot of different voting schedules. So as you can see here, this is just simply an example of the voting schedule here, where I'm having different dates for register voting, then vote by mail, then begin to mailing the ballots in versus the drop boxes, et cetera, et cetera. So again, it's very organized, but it's also very, very complicated. I could see why that some of the counties would maybe opt out and go for a more simplified schedule. I also appreciated this because recently I hosted a voting rights webinar links, and somebody asked me about early voting in the state of Alabama. Well, when I used the resource from vote.gov, I was not able to find any information about early voting. They wanted in-person voting, and they wanted you to have like a medical dispensation to basically do a vote by mail, and they were very, very strict about voter IDs and who's going to drop it off, et cetera, et cetera. So again, different states, different laws, different populations, different wills of the people. Let's continue on. Now, how are you going to present this to your students? This is the big thing, because it can be really, really complicated. So one of the things that I do, especially with my students, is I do web quests. And when I do web quests, I'm very, very I do give them very detailed uh, instructions about which web page to go to. So I basically give them a URL and a very simple graphic organizer to fill out this information. So this one looks a little bit more advanced. Usually I ask them about 3 or 4 questions on our graphic organizer. But here are some of these things, especially with I have low intermediate students right now. Who are my elected officials or my elected representatives? What are the voting and election laws in our states? And this is going to be particularly concerning for not only people, there might be people with different needs, so they might have to maybe go to a different voting center to meet their accommodations for mobility. There might be again different things that are time off from work to go and to vote. So some states have that, some states don't have that. Some counties in California have it. Some counties in California don't have it. Some people give their people off 2 hours or half a day or no time off at all. So students really have to pay attention to the time and the place where and when they can vote. And again, this really really helps your students if you do a series of web quests specifically on these different topics to make sure that they're able to vote or they're able to pass on this information to their fellow registered voters. I want to move on to the next topic, and our next topic is addressing the needs of our English language learners in adult education. And I'm going to pull two very great resources from ProLiteracy. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with ProLiteracy's News for You. They used to send out the papers with the voter guide. Now they have PDFs, which is really great. So we're going through this story by story in the run up to the election. So this has been very, very helpful. Again, you can do it online, so it's great for distance learning, or you can basically print this out. So it's up to you. You can basically download it and edit it to the way you want. So again, going through this carefully, and especially, as I said, I'm doing low literacy, teaching them how to take a look at the article, helping them pay attention to the graphics, again, is going to be really, really important. And again, they're going to not only able to tap their own literacy from their own voting experience, but again, they're going to be acquiring a lot of civics content and marrying that with their own English language learning. Let's move on to their new course. New Readers Press released their election 2024 interactive voting guide. So this is a series, I think there's about 20 videos on there, very simple videos that they've created or that they've taken from the news on a whole series of voting topics. Very appropriate for intermediate students and above. Maybe even some of your more precocious beginning high students can take a look at this. But again, they're talking about different aspects of voting, why voting matters or how the votes work or what the officials are they're voting for. So again, please take a look at this from New Readers Press. I would suggest, and I'm doing this now with my citizenship class, we're doing this together as a class. So I'm almost using it as to deliver content to my citizenship class, and they can go back and work through it themselves. But again, we're watching the videos together, doing a discussion, and doing a very short quiz based on each one of them to make sure that they get this information. Let me move on. Again, I'm going to talk a little bit more deeply about language and civics literacies. So one of the things that I really like to use is I like to use AI or generative AI to adapt the materials to the different language levels, check for understanding, and I'm sorry for that misspelling, and generate appropriate graphics. So when I look at the graphics from a lot of our well, I would say now that the ESL publishers are a little bit better, but still, when I look at some of the graphics, the people that are on those pictures do not look anything like my students. Okay, so I basically generate different graphics so to give a little bit more context, so the students can actually see themselves in the material that I'm trying to present. Some of the material that was presented was a little bit more difficult. So basically, maybe I put in a query and I asked them to bring it down a literacy level, or I use a tool or a suite of tools from Twee or from Magic School and ask them to create uh, uh, content. Sorry, um, let's see, checking for understanding uh, questions based on what has been presented. So again, I'm really trying to use that and basically to do some of the heavy lifting of some of those creating those civics materials. Again, you can use generative AI again for some of your older things, especially from your resources from 2020 and before that. When you're adapting those older resources, you really need to take a look at that lesson plan. You need to take a look at the core tests, the text, the supporting details, and delivery. So, for instance, I was looking at a really great lesson plan, but they said, "Hey, we want your students to create a poster." Well, my students, we're we really try to limit our paper use in our school. We're trying to do a lot of things digitally. So my students went off and created a slide deck. Okay, and so the question is how do we need to change or refresh or edit these old lesson plans that are still really valid, but are not quite hitting the mark, and especially if we're trying to do something to create to hit some of our state standards, especially when it comes to digital literacy. You always have to check and correct for names, dates, graphics, issues, and locations. You want to keep things in fresh because if your information is fresh and well organized and well presented, your students will stay engaged that much longer. And so try to use the ed tech tools to adapt accessibility. Again, you're changing the digital platforms and language literacies, etc. Also, I've been trying to teach my students how to use very limited AI. So again, this is the very beginning of our school years. By the end of the school year, I can see them basically creating some of the games that I labor over so long, or basically creating some of those content questions for the material that they're going through. So I'm very excited about that. I want to move on into news literacy, but the impetus for that is an educated citizenry is a vital requisite for our survival as a free people. This is attributed to Thomas Jefferson. I checked this quote out. Um, I went to monticello.org. They said it's attributed to him. It's probably a paraphrasing for his the way he thinks about education, but did he say this in any of his writings? He did not. But anyway, I'm trying to bring together the concept of digital literacy. So my students are really adept at their phones, but they fall apart if if they have to move from an Android to an iPhone, or they have to move it to a Chromebook. So we want to basically broaden their ability to use different digital technologies because they're going to encounter this stuff moving from one machine to another or one platform to another, especially when they go to their jobs. We want to basically help develop their information literacy, the ability to identify, locate, evaluate, and use that information. So initially, that's what I'm trying to really attempt to do on the web searches. I find if I start narrow web searches, they start getting those habits to basically find that good information. And then later on, I'm going to offer them an ability or a choice on what kind of websites they want to use. But initially, when they go in, I think they really need direction, so they don't get lost, and they're basically learning these good information habits. News literacy is the ability to critically evaluate news sources and information, and media literacy is the ability to critically analyze, evaluate media messages across the different platforms, especially since we were going to see, you might see something on Facebook, it's going to be tweaked differently on TikTok, you might see it reused on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. But overlaying all these is we really need to engage critical thinking, and this is something that we definitely know we need to talk about in our classrooms. So they probably are very quite adept at doing critical thinking in their own language, but now they're going to have to be engaging that when they're using another language. Well, of course, this is going to be initially very difficult to use to do, but again, it's going to be able to help them integrate their language and civics skills that much more quickly, and their digital skills as well. So again, don't be afraid to bring up things about critical thinking. The students are constantly asking, why are we doing this? What's happening, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Basically trying to, I guess, address some of those questions up front is going to help your students and give them the confidence to move forward in their own media usage. One of there's two sources, or there's actually on the COAB resource list that's being updated right now. I have a lot of things in there about news literacy and media literacy, but there's one that I want to really point out. It's the News Literacy Project. I think it's related to you may know it as Checkology, or it was related to Checkology. But they have two products that are, three products that I really like. Their election 2024 uh, section on being informed about what's really going on in the election, not misled. They're really trying to address about things about misinformation and disinformation. So taking a look at that material, taking a look at the rumor guard. Now, the rumor guard is basically going out and people submit memes from, or like an Instagram post or a post from X, and they basically put it through it. The criteria, is this actually true or is it not true? So it's, and I will review that criteria in a minute. And then the SIFT, and we get thousands of newsletters as adult educators, but this one is really worth signing up for. The SIFT newsletter really basically takes a look at what's happening with news literacy and talks about different lessons, and has lots of links in there. So this is really, really worth your lead, especially going up into that election and beyond. There's going to be a lot of news about the election, but there's going to be even more news about the transition. So we really need to keep up and really need to start training our students to basically with those good habits. The next one I really want to say is that I know I love that Dare Not Speak Its Name. I love VOA, Voice of America News. They have a really good election section. This is the news from today. And they have these really great 2-minute videos that explain different aspects of the election. VOA Learning English has a very good, I would say, intermediate or maybe high beginner course about English news literacy and American. Oh, I'm sorry, I got this really wrong. This should be American English at state, not American election at state. They have open course, their open course sister website. They have some really good courses about using media. Now, some of those have been those resources have been exported to their own YouTube channel, but going back and taking a look at those webinars that teachers from all over the world have contributed to, and taking a look at those resources are really well worth your time. You're not only going to find things about media, but of course you're going to find things about pronunciation or writing or journalism. So please, please take a look at those. And again, all these links are going to be on the new updated COAB voter guide. Again, I want to talk about why is it so important to to develop the news and media literacies, because we're not only supporting language, civics, and digital literacies, We need these literacies to make informed choices at the voting box. Because I mean, when I was younger, I just used to open my favorite newspaper and look at their suggestion guide how to vote, and I would cut that piece of paper out, take it to the voting booth, and I wouldn't even do my own research. We no longer have the luxury of not doing research. We gotta do it. So we, especially if we want to be informed voters instead of just media consumers. So one of the things that I've done is we've been especially in our school, is we've been trying to do media surveys. What media platforms do our students consume, and what do they produce on? For instance, I have one student who posts a lot of stuff on TikTok. Or no, sorry, produces a lot of stuff on YouTube, but uh, gets a lot of the stuff from TikTok, or you're seeing reposts from one platform to WeChat. So again, there's some people who are absolute mavens in their own community, on their own online community. They're getting it from one place and they're moving the information to another place. We need to have that information to be good, not only in English, but hopefully what they're learning in their classroom also transfers back to the media that they share in their own languages. In all our classes, we need to examine our role of media in the elections, and uh, because a lot of us students, hey, high school for us was a long time ago, and that's the last time a lot of us had civics or even history classes, or maybe we had a couple classes in college. But our updated information is basically coming from the media. So if you're consuming bad media, you're getting bad information about our governmental system. So we basically need to make sure that we have good access to good information. One of my favorite resources is the Anfontis media bias chart, but there's other bias charts out there, because it's like who could I can appreciate, I feel that that's neutral, but there's other charts out there as well. For instance, like allsites.org, basically people who are trying to present information from the left, from the right, and from the center, and people making their own decisions. And here's the 5 factors that I refer to when we're judging media. And this is information is from rumor guard. We're taking a look at the source. We're taking a look at the context, the evidence, reasoning, and the authenticity, so we can make our best judgment at the polling place. I'm gonna be moving on to why is it important to get moving not only from a vote to be a voter, but some people can actually learn to get to work at a center, helping people register or helping people fill out their ballot, or maybe with accessibility. So there's a lot of volunteer opportunities for younger people, and even for people who want to give temporary jobs at a voting place. So this is the advertisement for my local registrar of voters, basically asking for people to come in, and they'll get paid a stipend, and they'll get some experience and have a good time. People have started there, or I started here, and then I go, well, I wonder, they said something about poll worker protection. So I went to our state, and I saw more information about, hey, apply to be a poll worker for the state of California, or a supervisor. Oh, and here's some more information about uh, uh, protection for poll workers. So then I moved on to the cyber and infrastructure security agency.gov, and they were talking more about potential threats to voting security. And gee, they were recruiting people to basically start working on that as software engineers on cybersecurity. That led me further into this is from the national, oh, I'm sorry, to the National Center of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity. This is coming off of CISA.gov, and it's basically saying that These are high schools and community colleges and tech schools that are basically putting in academic pathways to start learning about cybersecurity so you can basically go into those really high paying um, uh, careers. And that was especially important for some of my students because they were software engineers in their old country. Now they're driving Uber in Silicon Valley. They want to get back to engineering, and they actually have experience in security. This is the place that is gonna identify the schools that they should start taking a look at so they can basically move that much more quickly. And the other thing that I would suggest is if you're like, for instance, Ohlone College is just up the road from me. I'm like, hey, we can create a partnership. Maybe we can create a bridge from our adult school to that community college and basically start getting our Uber driving engineers into a better paying job that much more quickly. And again, I really suggest that you guys take a look at that, especially so much in the East Coast and the South, seeing what kind of nearby partners there are and basically make those connections so you can move your students that much faster. Again, one of the places that I end up was the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Careers and Studies. This again is growing out of CISA.gov, and this was a really, really interactive career pathway or a tool that basically can compare if you start off as a software security assessment, what kind of what kind of education do you need? What kind of experience do you need? How can you move to different jobs? So you could compare and contrast different jobs, different education, different pathways. And this was really, really exciting. So I hope that you're able to take a look at this tool and take a look at some of the toolboxes from CISA.gov and basically start figuring out how you can basically get some of your students into those better jobs to protect our voting, not only voting rights, but our voting system. So again, this is a little bit of the sequence that I actually took from the local, taking a look at my local registrar of voters, moving through the resources and the toolkits, taking a look at the National Centers for Academic Excellence, and again, taking a look at the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Careers and Studies. So please, please, please take a look at these and see if you can make those connections for your schools. I am basically trying to. I'm going to talk very quickly about organizations, and when you take a look at the COABE uh, um, voter information guide, there's a lot of organizations in there about uh, but and it was really hard for me to pick just two examples, but I did pick League of Women Voters because I know my colleague Chris is going to be talking about the work of the League of Women Voters. But it was they're leading off with they're talking about voting rights as particularly expanding voter access, especially, and you're thinking about expanding a voter access. Well, I'm thinking language, but they're not only thinking about language, they're talking about restorative justice. They're talking about a mobility access. So that was really, really important. Redistricting, better known as gerrymandering. So this has always been a fight in all of our states. Particularly, you can really uh, put a party in power forever if you have bad redistricting. How can you pursue fair redistricting that is basically representing the political choices of the people, in a given area? Money in politics, better. I will move on from that. And fighting voter suppression. Again, this one was really talking about how people are basically trying to. Some people are saying that on one hand, we're trying to secure people's vote by asking for IDs. On the other hand, people are saying that's really restrictive. people do not have access to all the ideas that the ID that is required. What happens if you happen to leave your wallet at home? Okay. So those kind of things, talking about restorative justice, League of Women Voters is front and center with the forums that they hold, with the materials that they prepare, and the nonpartisan stances that they take. They've really helped out a lot of people. So again, I'm looking forward to the comments from Chris. And here, some people really poo-poo social media. I happen to love social media, and this is a post from that was celebrating the Disability Voting Rights Week that we were celebrating last week. And Links did a really great webinar about voting and disability rights, and we have that link to uh, our resources on the COA voting system. But here, one they took this original um, post from AAPD, and they basically started tagging all these different organizations. Basically, they're hosting a interactive event celebrating Disability Voting Rights Week, and this is part of the Rev Up voting campaign for to getting disabled voters to the polls so that their needs can be met and their voices can be raised. So again, I thought this was a really good way to basically show solidarity with each other, and basically, just make that amplify each other's voices. So again, different voice groups, different voices advocating together. And we're trying to lift our voices to advocate for ourselves and our communities through collective action. So we always want to ask who advocates for our communities. What are my rights and responsibilities? Where can I meet up with people with like-minded people? And do you speak? This is a really important question, because unless some people feel they can speak English, but they might feel much more comfortable in their talking about the wins and the whys and the nuances of issues related to the election in their own native languages. And some students will simply opt out. It's like, hey, you don't speak my language, I'm out of here. So again, we want to bring everybody in to share that. So we always want to know when the next meeting is, and we always need to be ready with the answer, why should I join your group? And how can I get more involved? And if I don't advocate for myself and my family, who will? If we expect somebody else to do it, it's not going to get done. We need to step up ourselves, join together like the previous social media posts that I did to basically show solidarity. And with that, I am ready to turn it over to my colleague, Chris. Chris, are you ready? Chris?
I just joined the room. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello,
Okay.
hello. I'm ready
Hello,
to
hello.
move. Okay,
Thank you.
great.
Are you able to control the slides from
Yes, I
your?
am.
Okay,
I am.
okay, awesome. And so I'm here today to talk to you guys about some major issues. They can literally turn a whole election. If we're able to get populations of individuals to understand that they do have voting rights, even if they made past mistakes. And so the first thing that I'm going to talk about is restoring your voting right if you're a convicted felon. I did quite a bit of research on here. What my aim was to find the most cut and paste, straight to the point method on how to restore your voter rights as a convicted felon. And what I found was a website. And I have it listed in the slides here. It is campaignlegal.org / restore your vote. It is a phenomenal website. Are we able to pull up this website? I don't want
Sure.
to. Okay, okay,
Do you just give me a second?
okay. Take your time. Take your time.
I'm going to escape
Hmm.
and I'm going to go there right now.
Okay.
Can you give it to me again? Campaign Legal?
It is campaignlegal.org
Okay.
back okay /
Mhm.
Restore your vote.
Restore your vote.
Correct.
Okay, this should, unless I such a better fingers. Here we go.
Okay. And so on this website, it is extremely user friendly. It is extremely easy to use. And so if you scroll down, you'll say, "Can I vote? I have a felony conviction," right? You scroll down, and one of the first questions they're going to ask you is in what state do you want to register to vote? And so you'll put the state, okay?
Which state are you in?
I'm in Oklahoma.
Do you want to start there, or where do you want to
Yes,
start?
yes. Let's do that. So you put in Oklahoma, and then the next question is going to come up. It's going to ask you, have you been convicted of a felony? And so let's just say that I have. And so I'm going to click yes. Okay. And then it's going to ask me, are you currently incarcerated for your felony conviction? And so I'm just going to go out on a limb and I'm going to put no. Okay. And then it's going to ask me, am I currently on probation or on parole? And again, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click no. Right?
So you finished your probation, you finished your parole. Is that correct? Thank
Correct. And I'm not currently in jail.
Great.
Okay. And then it's going to ask me, has the term of my original sentence expired? And I'm going to put yes.
You can vote.
I can vote. I can vote. And it'll tell me to register to vote with our friends at vote.org. And so you'll go to vote.org, and that'll be a whole nother process that you go through to get registered. Now let's go back and let's pick a different state.
Okay, great.
What state are you in?
I'm in California.
Okay, let's put California.
And this is really great because actually our adult school, we serve we take care of the prison population for our county, Santa Clara. So that's really great.
Okay.
So this is great. Okay, good.
And so it's going to ask me, have I been convicted of a felony? I'm going to put yes. It's going to ask me if I'm currently incarcerated for my felony conviction. I'm going to go ahead and click yes.
So are the questions going to be a little bit different, or maybe will the questions be different for the states?
No, the questions are going to be the same for the states, but the responses are going to be different.
Okay.
And so, like when we were in Oklahoma, and I put, "Are you currently incarcerated for a felony conviction?" If I would have put yes, they would have told me right then and there that I'm not able to vote, because in Oklahoma you cannot vote unless your felony conviction has been resolved. But see, as we see here in California, you could still potentially be able to vote even if you're in jail for your felony conviction.
Well, especially here, if for our county, we have a difference between county jails and state jails. Do you have that in Oklahoma? Wow.
Yes,
okay.
we do. We do.
What do you,
and that go ahead.
do you want me to do yes or no?
Let's put yes.
Okay, great.
And say, are you currently incarcerated in county? Let's put yes. And then it says, are you currently serving a state prison sentence even though you're in county jail? Let's go ahead and put yes.
Yeah.
And then it'll tell me, unfortunately, I'm not able to vote. I'm not eligible to vote. But depending on how I would have answered these questions, we can see that even in California, being currently incarcerated for a crime, you still have the ability to vote. And I bet my bottom dollar, a lot of individuals who are incarcerated don't even know that.
Right.
So this is a very, very user-friendly, all-access website that has been adapted for each state. It is the easiest way that I found that you can restore your right to vote as a convicted felon.
I think this is really important for us because especially our HiSET and our GED, we're very, very popular in prison, but a lot of people get out before they can complete it. They have to come to our adult school to complete it. So most of our population in our adult school is coming from the jails, and they probably don't know about this. I'm so excited about this. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay, now where would you like me to go?
And this is I just want to we can go back to the slides.
Sure.
And this, guys, I mean, when I tell you how impactful this is, this can change the entire landscape of an election. Because it's ironic that the individuals who are incarcerated can be used as constituents in that state, but a lot of them have their right to vote has been taken away from them only to the extent that they don't know how to restore their right to vote.
Okay,
And
great.
so that's what we want to work on, is putting the information out there so that they can participate in the process, which they should be able to, especially if they're allowed to be counted as constituents of that state.
Well, this is also important for me because some of our people are eligible for citizenship, but they think I have a felony, I can't become a citizen. And
Mhm.
maybe if they go through the expunging and basically see these kind of tools, some of their questions and some of their fears will be addressed and they can
Yes,
move on with the rest of their life.
it is all process and paperwork that become entry barriers to entry. And
Okay.
so when we begin to figure those things out, we
Mhm.
can help a lot of our population.
Okay. Shall I go to the next slide?
Yes, let's go to the next slide.
Okay, great.
So another thing that would be great, I know we have a lot of different states that are being represented on this discussion, is if you can look into your version of the Clean Slate Initiative.
Mm.
This is it's in a majority of the nation. It may go by a different name, but on principle, they're trying to accomplish the same thing. And it is a state level program, and it's aimed at helping individuals with past criminal records clear or expunge their records. The goal is to improve their opportunities for employment, housing, and other aspects of daily life. It typically involves legal reform aimed at giving people a fresh start and reducing recidivism by addressing the long-term impacts of having a criminal record. This is critical. And to me, the reason why it's so critical is that when you look at recidivism, a lot of individuals repeat offend because the reality that they come out to is not much better than the reality that caused them to commit the crime in the first place.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so if we're being honest, if we're really going to give them a second chance, it's hard to when they have this black cloud hanging over their head wherever they go. And so they can't get the proper employment, they can't get the proper housing. Some of them can't even get the proper education, but yet we expect them to progress. This clean slate initiative will allow individuals who want to really take advantage of a second chance to become productive members of society, which I feel like we've all made mistakes in the past.
Mm.
The unfortunate thing about our society is we don't keep track of the great things that we did. We have backgrounds, but it only keeps track of our criminals. Of the criminal things that have been done. None of the great things that you might have done to contribute to society are tracked on our background. And so it is a very enabling document that has not allowed a lot of individuals who have made mistakes in the past to advance. And so looking into this clean slate initiative, I feel like would be a good way of advocating for your population. There's different variations of this program at a state level, but there is growing advocacy for federal reform that standardizes and expands these efforts nationwide. So
This
while
is
currently, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Absolutely critical. I
Mhm,
just so excited.
mhm. So
Sorry, I got too excited.
no, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
While there are being efforts to consolidate everybody's state effort into making this a national thing, right now it's mainly seen at the state. But in due time, this will be a national, in some form of legislation, and us advocating for it will help it get there faster.
Yes.
We
Okay.
can go to the next slide.
Mm.
Okay, so I serve on the board of the League of Women's Voters in Oklahoma City. So one of the things that wanted to come to talk to you about today is things that we have been doing to counteract voter suppression. First thing, it's important to understand that there's certain political powers where their their whole approach and strategy is built on voter suppression.
Mm.
Like they really benefit when people do not get out to vote and when people are uninformed, and to the point where they will present misinformation. So it is our job to, remain unbiased to each party, but just doing the best that we can to get the information out there. And we do this at different levels. One level is legislation. We are very heavy in advocating for fair voting laws and the elimination of restrictive voting requirements and equal access to voting. When I'm saying this, you guys, really, I mean, this is a very ambiguous phrase or ambiguous sentence that I just gave to you. But what I'm seeing in reality is very small things that make a huge difference. And I'm gonna give you an example. You had a group of individuals who had become accustomed to voting at a certain location, It had been their location for over 15 years. Just 2 years ago, that location was switched. So the individuals who usually go over there had been switched to a different location to go and vote. Now, the only way that people were going to know what their new location was to scan a QRC code, which would redirect them to a new location. Now, people might not see this as barriers to entry, but think about some of the elderly individuals who have been coming to this place for years and years and years. And all of a sudden, you just have a QR code sitting out there. And they have not been the most technological savvy individuals.
Right.
So as soon as we saw that, we jumped on that, and we forced the city to do much more than just putting a QR code to redirect people to where they need to vote. We basically made the case that voting is too of an impactful activity to simply think that everybody's going to get it because you put a QR code right outside of their usual location. So those are the things that we do from a legislative angle. Another thing that we do, the biggest thing that we do, is voter education. We provide comprehensive voter education resources, helping individuals understand their rights as well as how to register. We do quite a bit of going around to different schools, going around to different agencies, and we just show people how to get registered. You'll be amazed at the number of people who have no idea on how to register, how to vote, and it is so easy now. It is so easy. Logging on to that voter.org website will walk you through everything that you need to do, regardless of where you are, to get registered to vote. And you won't leave that website without being registered. One thing that they're going to need to have in handy is their driver's license. So they need to have their driver's license information.
Right. So I know, especially when I was taking a look at the Alabama one, it seemed like just because you're registered doesn't mean you're still probably going to get a provisional ballot when you go in, unless you have that they want that ID. They want, and they and that's their law. So you have to respect that. But the other thing is that as a citizenship teacher, we're still doing some of the COVID protocol. We're not having the big oath ceremonies. So a lot of people are a lot of immigrants who go on to become super voters, for the most part, are missing out on registering to vote. They'll get their passport, but they're not registering to vote. So a lot of people are being disenfranchised that way.
Yes.
So we really need to be proactive and basically making sure everybody gets registered. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And when we talk about the population of our society that does not vote, a lot of them are sitting in the seats of these organizations that we service on. So it's really about advocating right at home. And so that's the last thing that we do is we create partnerships and coalitions with a lot of agencies that perform similar services, because we understand that population that doesn't vote, they exist in those agencies.
Yes.
And so we do a lot of partnering and voter registration workshops right within those same agencies so that we can begin to get this group of individuals that are not accustomed to voting to getting out to the polls. And I know we don't have a lot of time left, so that was exactly what I did. What I came here to do was to explain those things to you. So I hope this helps.
It was great. It was beautiful. I'm sorry we don't have any time for questions and answers. Maybe let's see if we can take a peek. When this is posted to the COABE YouTube website, please put comments on there, and we'll be checking that out. And of course, we'll respond to you that way. I'm happy to answer any questions through my email, jgallardi@musd.org. And Chris, how can people contact you?
I can be contacted at cmyers@oicokc.org. I will put that in the chat for you guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's see. Let me put that
Great.
in.
Well, thank you both so much for
Okay.
presenting. I just want to make a quick point here as we're closing out that, Chris, I really appreciate you coming in here at the last hour. He's a state advocate fellow from Oklahoma. Was on one of our last calls and said, "Oh, I have information on this. I can help with this." So thank you, Chris, for the information. It's really helpful since we have over 60,000 individuals in our system that are in the WIOA system that are justice impacted. So very helpful there. And Jennifer, all of the information you share, I always find it so helpful. I know we all are really interested in helping learners to get their citizenship, and we all are interested in helping legal learners to vote. So very excited about that. which is why COABE maintains the voter resource page. So thank you again, Jennifer, for your help and support with all of that. Thank you to all of you who took the time out of your day to join us. We really appreciate it. We hope you're having a wonderful Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. And we wish you the very best. We'll see you tomorrow for Fab Friday and the Rise and Shine podcast. Thank you, everybody.
Yay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.